Shavua Tov. We are entering the period of the 3 weeks. Tomorrow is Shiva Asar Tammuz, and we will head up to Tisha B'Av, which makes for 3 weeks of sad times throughout Jewish history. And I want to look at that through some unusual lenses. We're going to have a step back into child psychology, developmental, and specifically the attachment theory. The attachment theory started in the 1950s with a psychologist named John Bowlby, and then his student Mary Ainsworth, and it works on and on till we look at child attachment theory from neuropsych. So, what is this attachment theory? It's about the connection between a brand new baby and its caregiver. So, from the moment you hold that baby, you become attached to them and they become attached to you. And that attachment is really an indicator of their success in relationships throughout their life. So from the moment that little baby wraps its hand around your finger, that's that attachment. That moment the new baby snuggles up against you, that's the attachment. But that attachment means that when it's strong and it's secure, that they understand connection between others in a way that affects every relationship for the rest of their life. They're attached or they struggle with attachment. And the more attached they are, the more successful they're going to be. There are things that get in the way of attachment, like a baby not being able to be as close to its parent for medical reasons, abusive situations, some really terrible things. And sometimes, as anybody who has more than one kid knows, some children choose to attach more than others to their parents. Okay? Mary Ainsworth did a test, a clinical trial, I suppose, for like 1,000 kids, and it was called the strange situation. So you'd have a toddler and a mother or a caregiver. The caregiver leaves the room, stranger comes in. Toddler generally reacts by crying, and then caregiver returns. So the big test wasn't really what happens when the stranger enters, so much as what happens when the caregiver returns. Is the child happy to be reunited or sad and then comforted? Either of those scenarios mean that it's a secure attachment. This is my caregiver. They left me and I love them and I'm glad they're back, but it was hard when they left. But sometimes when it's an insecure attachment, they're either aggressive and angry and mean to the caregiver who left them, and sometimes they just ignore them completely. And sometimes it's disorganized where they're happy or they're sad or they're angry and they don't really know, and it can go all different ways. All of that is an insecure attachment. And those attachments that are set up from a very young age, they affect along the entire trajectory of someone's lifespan. There's some movement in it, and somebody who has an insecure attachment, it can get better and it can get worse, but it's generally pretty consistent. But the biggest indicator of strengthening after that snuggly stage is mind mindfulness. And mind mindfulness is the caregiver trying to really understand the needs, to really be present in understanding who this baby is and providing for them in a nurturing way. And then the reverse happens as the child gets a little older and they're aware of that mind mindfulness. It becomes a shared mind mindfulness. My cousin tells this story of she just moved house and it was so hard and she was at her wit's end and she didn't it was just so hard. And her 1.5-year-old comes over to her, toddles over with her blankie and her pacifier. And she puts the pacifier in her mom's mouth and puts the blankie on her. Because the little baby, she's able to see, wow, my mindfulness is that my mom is having a hard time. And I know what to do because I know what she does for me when I'm having a hard time. So mindfulness, it's the shared understanding of who the other is. Okay, so maybe you got a good handle on attachment theory now. You can Google it to find out some more. But how does this relate to the 3 weeks? Well, Shiva Asar Tammuz is the first time it all went badly was the sin of the golden calf, right? Egel HaZahav. So we have this brand newborn nation if we look in the Torah, right? We've got Bnei Israel, Jewish people. They've left Egypt where they were in a pretty abusive relationship. as slaves. The hand of God and the finger of God is something that they've grasped onto, like new babies. They are maybe attached. They get the Torah. Hashem is holding them, providing food for them, doing everything for them. And then he and Moshe say, we're doing the strange situation. We're going to go for a few minutes. We'll be up on top of that mountain. See you in 40 days. And it goes really badly. And that's the whole golden calf. That's what happens. We were not securely attached to Hashem. We weren't ready to be attached in that way. And the hope would be that, well, it just got better, but it didn't. We have 5 historic events of tragedy throughout history, and then with Tisha B'Av more, and then more throughout modernity. You look at just, it keeps going. So if we're not securely attached, what happened? Well, attachment would be, the Hebrew word would logically be devekut, to really cling to Hashem. And it's not about emotional attachment so much as spiritual attachment. We're not there. Not yet, not all the time. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. So what was the tool in attachment parenting and in devekut? It's mindfulness. It's understanding, what does Hashem want from me, and what do I really need from Hashem? And working on that relationship to understand, well, I need this from Hashem. I asked him for this, and the answer was no. And to have space for that and own that and hold that mindfulness. Because as parents, as caregivers, we say that to our children all the time. We don't want them to reject us when we say no to something. We need to be attached to them. They need to be attached to us. And we need to work on our attachment, our spiritual attachment, our devekut to Hashem. And it all is going to come from that mindfulness. So I give us the bracha, you, whoever's listening, and all of Klal Yisrael, that we are really able to actualize that, because that is going to be the redemption. When our minds are synced with Hashem's will, and our will is synced with Him, and then we're all going to be together and firmly attached, and that should bring the ultimate redemption. I give you the bracha of Shalom, Devekut, and Ratzon, mindfulness. Have a great evening.